And now we're live. So sorry about the delay, just some
I'm
minor
sorry.
computer issue. Oh, hey, Asia, you just came in just as we started.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was doing Ray and I was like, oh shit, stream. And so and I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to have to leave these guys behind too.
It'll be fine.
Um,
You were playing
oh
Destiny 2, so you didn't really lose anything.
yeah.
Ooh, shots
Okay, so
fired. So
so
any
it's just the three of us.
for now, yeah. I sent an invite to
Okay.
Hoplu, so if he shows up, he shows up.
Okay.
So anyways, what we were going to be talking about, at least starting out, is President Trump did a primetime address about an hour ago where he went on TV. Every single cable news show reluctantly had to broadcast it, and he spent 5 minutes talking about, well, the border wall, how much he wants to build the wall, and why the Democrats in Congress are not allowing him to do that. He tried doing everything he can to pull at our heartstrings about all of the horrible things that happened, all of the police officers, all of the pregnant women who were killed by illegal immigrants, whose the implication being that their lives would have been saved but for the wall.
Let's play the world's smallest violin. Who would like to do that?
I mean,
I don't have
I do genuinely
like.
feel bad for all of those people, but it's
Oh
hard to
yeah,
say
of
like
course.
it's hard to say whose life would have actually been saved one way or another. I mean, people have already made the point that yeah, the wall will slow down the number of people coming in, but people will still come in. I mean,
I mean
planes
that's
can
kind of
fly over walls.
I mean that's kind of like saying that gun control might help reduce gun homicides, but people are still going to do
Well,
it anyway.
this is another problem with how the immigration debate's handled. That it's presented in the media and by politicians like the border is a physical structure, like a door that can open and close, and this is very much evidenced by how they talk about it, like um, not enforcing like not very strong immigration policies, not very forceful immigration policies, is equals open border, more guns being pointed at more people, and longer waiting lists, stricter requirements, and more money to get in equals closed borders. So the idea of people coming to the country on a plane and then just simply not returning, like overstaying their visa, that's just completely alien to them. So it sort of plays to their detriment as well, the border statists. But if you actually do discuss what you want by arguing for a border, more people would probably reject it. In fact, the way that it is now, they've managed to convince people that supporting um, more forceful border enforcement somehow makes you a libertarian. That seems to be the mainstream narrative.
More border enforcement makes you a libertarian.
Yeah, like Tucker Carlson pretends that he's a libertarian because of that. Um, you and then you've got the politisphere on YouTube, like Paul Joseph Watson and some of these channels which are promoted in the mainstream, like Dave Rubin or Jordan Peterson, which talk about use extremely collectivist phrasing like national sovereignty and that globalists are imperialists. That like a lot of them don't overtly say that it's libertarian to have more forceful border restrictions imposed by the state, but that's the implication they're trying to push.
Well, and this is going to be the big this is the big problem I have with the political spectrum, and more often I find myself having to say this both in real life and in Discord, that idea that there's just a Republican Democrat solution very much narrows people's perspective into thinking that these are the only two possible solutions to to these problems. Whereas you look at what Trump said, and you can see that the response from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, Democrat leaders in the U.S. Congress, they very much agree on the idea that it is the state's role to prevent people from coming into the country or to allow certain groups of people from coming into the country. This is something that they both completely agree on. There is no discussion as to whether or not it's justified or not. There is no discussion as to whether or not the idea of the government being able to arbitrarily decide whether certain groups of people can be legal immigrants or illegal immigrants just because they gave the government certain amounts of money and signed certain magical pieces of paper that gave them these designations that simply do not exist.
Like, no one questions the ethics behind this.
Nobody does.
And you gotta love the argument, well, why don't they just come legally? Well, first of all, the state has to justify what the existence of borders entirely. The burden of proof is not on the people wanting to come into another territory. It's on the state to justify why it has borders there. But, I mean, if you actually look at the waiting periods, for example, it's like 140 years for a 25-year-old working age male to try and immigrate to the U.S. Like, it's fucking crazy. No wonder so many people illegally immigrate here.
Yeah, I think I actually used the example in one of my videos of a guy who spent thousands of dollars and like 10 to 15 years to go through the process legally. He did everything right, and he was still, for lack of a better term, screwed.
So, why don't they just come here legally? Because best case scenario, if they do, they'll be waiting their entire life, potentially, just to get the okay to come into the U.S. So,
I mean, it's about as slow as tectonic plates. Like, that's just the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm. And the best response I've gotten in terms when I bring this issue up with people is that, oh yeah, well, the immigration system needs some reform. That doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't say,
that's
like,
a cop out. You may as well just say, well, let's agree to disagree, because that literally doesn't mean anything.
You're not
other than they don't have a good rebuttal to any of the arguments you're making, but they're not going to agree with you. They're going to try and pretend like you don't have any valid points still.
At least tell me that I've made a decent point, or tell me that, I don't know, this is a terrible point and it should be 20 years. Make an actual freaking argument.
Oh, hey, Dirty Bomb or someone's not playing Dirty Bomb.
Okay. And
I
what's
just saw
even,
that on the stream.
although I think it's even funnier, is that the President of the United States can give a primetime address while government is shut down. Supposedly. I was watching coverage on Fox News for like 45 minutes starting at 9 o'clock, and nobody mentioned this. Like, there was a brief mention of the fact that there's a government shutdown going on, but they didn't make the connection between why is this happening.
Mm-hmm.
This referring to the primetime address. Apparently the government's not shut down enough to get makeup on Trump, to get the lighting, to get the cameras all set up, to get all the connections and the feeds ready, get them all tested, all the kind of stuff that would go into making a primetime address. So what the hell's going on there?
Could it be that the government's not really shut down after all? No, that might make too much sense.
Well, I mean, we already know that the government shutdowns are completely phony. I did a video about how it's entirely a propaganda piece. I remember in 2014 there was something like 87% of the government was still functional.
Yeah, you can just think about how they're describing it as a shutdown. Like, imagine, for example, if a company, say Walmart, were to have 15% of their employees have paid leave or unpaid leave, doesn't really matter. Um, and then they described this as Walmart shutting down. Like 85% of the employees are still there. The store is still open. Everything is completely functional, but they describe it as a shutdown. It's very clearly just a propaganda term used to fearmonger. I don't know, but yeah, it's a propaganda term. It's misleading. Doesn't even come close to accurately describing what's actually going on. So
It's a misnomer in this context.
It really is, but another thing that's interesting that happened supposedly during the government shutdown is Marco Rubio was able to introduce a red flag bill into Congress that would require all, or that would give federal money to all states that implement red flag laws. So Congress is still going to try to continue passing legislation. I'm pretty sure most of the bureaucracies are still open. All of the things that the government considers to be quote unquote essential, those are still going to be happening.
For Republicans advocating for gun control.
It's more often happens more often than you think.
Yeah, where are the Republicans complaining about that? Like, come on, get with it.
Oh no, this thing is bipartisan.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but it was proposed by Marco Rubio, who's a Republican.
And this is the same Marco Rubio who was with Dana Lash on that cesspool of a town hall event hosted by freaking CNN, where he was supposed to defend the NRA or defend gun rights or something.
He didn't even like do anything to defend it. He's just like, yeah, I agree, we need common sense laws. Get some actual people on there to just refute their. They weren't even making arguments. It was mostly just a bunch of emotionally manipulative bullshit. Think of the children.
I feel like if you were to bring Karl Marx back from the dead and have him debate those people, he would win.
I don't think it would be that difficult, actually. He wouldn't say anything that they would disagree with.
Well, it's because from a factual perspective, literally everything they said is just completely wrong. Yeah, I mean, remember that review that I did of David Hogg's book earlier this summer?
Yeah.
And it's up on BitChute because YouTube is apparently going to defend their precious little darling from any criticism. Because
wait. Who's David Hogg? You mean Daniel Bohr?
Yeah, well, it got taken down, and yeah, it's up on my BitChute for anyone who wants to see it. But anyway, yeah, in his book, he claims that the CDC isn't conducting any studies. They haven't conducted any studies on firearm homicides in specific categories. But the thing is, they've done this like almost every year. I don't know how far back they've done this, but yeah, I could find studies on this since at least the 90s. It's just that every single study they did shows that yeah, the gun control statistics pushed by organizations like Everytown are just completely false. And then when you factor in the FBI statistics and you see that 2 to 3 million crimes are stopped annually, as opposed to the 20 to 30,000 people who are killed annually in murders, and 90% of all the 2 to 3 million are violent crimes that are stopped. I mean, it's...
Let me do some fun statistics with that. So apparently 300,000 crimes are initiated with guns, and that results in about 10,000 homicides, which is about 4.3%, I believe, of all of those crimes. So if you were to take that number and apply that to the 2 million, you would get about over 80,000 people, which you basically saved with guns.
So for every 80,000 people saved with guns, one of them dies.
So it's not that the CDC isn't conducting studies. It's just that every time they put out a study, everybody completely BTFOs the gun control argument.
Yeah. I don't know.
These statistics aren't very hard to find. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah,
this
like
was just complete laziness on his part, but I don't know. I feel uncomfortable whenever I put something out there, I make a claim, something that I know can be factually proven or disproven, and I don't at least check to make sure that
It's
it's
because David
accurate.
Hogg knows. It's because David Hogg knows that if anyone dares criticize him, YouTube or any of the other social media sites will just ban his dissenters.
But I mean, like, doesn't he just feel uncomfortable putting that out there? I've deleted entire lines from that I've already recorded in my videos because I couldn't find anything to back it up. I mean, I
No,
knew it was there, but I had trouble finding it.
no, it's because he's an actor.
Yeah, pretty
he's
much.
a IRL cosplayer.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
player.
you don't even you don't even need to see the fact that like every town for gun safety posted an article about the shooting an hour and a half before it happened, or that just generally all the inconsistencies, like how David Hogg's wearing earpieces in his interviews that were supposedly taken on the spot, how David Hogg was riding his bike to the school while the shooting happened at 2:30, but was also recording in the closet of his school while the shooting was happening at 9:30 in the morning.
And he was also recording in his econ class,
But
hiding
yeah,
under a desk.
you don't even need all of that in order to know that David Hogg is just a complete fake and an actor. It's just how quickly he rose to prominence. I mean, that doesn't happen without a lot of financial backing from large political organizations.
And I think something like CNN was on the scene 30 minutes before even the
The
police
shooting.
were.
Oh. I still remember that like one news clip where it was like that guy going to the hospital, but there was like no one
Yeah,
in the like.
that was the
Yeah,
supposedly that was the shooter. I don't remember his name, who was on the
Nicholas.
stretcher. Nicholas Cruz, was that it?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Is he
Nicholas
like a
Cruz was supposedly on the stretcher, surrounded by police, surrounded by paparazzi, all that stuff. I wanted to get a glimpse. You had I think, drone camera footage from above, wheeling him out from the thing into the hospital, and the gurney is empty.
like is
yeah,
he
it's
the Invisible
completely
Man or
empty.
what?
He's invisible.
I wouldn't be surprised if one night you learn that he glows in the dark.
He might be. Just run him over. It's what you do.
Watch out, kids.
Yeah, so one other thing before we continue. If you want to participate in the conversation, we do have super chats enabled. So just drop us a donation, and we'll be more than happy to respond to whatever it is you had to say, no matter how absurd, racist, offensive, or eldritch. So anyway, since we were on the topic of the government shutdown earlier, I believe, Esso, you were telling me before the stream started about what people are doing in response to the government shutdown.
Oh yeah. So there are at least three cases of this, but apparently groups from all over the U.S. have started doing the jobs of the 15% of the government agencies which are shut down, and the quality of the work is improving, unsurprisingly. Um, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, during the government shutdown, there is I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, but a Muslim youth organization that stepped up and decided to empty trash cans all over national parks. And they're finishing it within a very short period of time with 70 volunteers. There's also one chapter of that exact same organization doing this in Everglade National Park in Florida, Joshua Tree National Park in California, the National Mall of Washington D.C., and Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio. So they're all over the country. And next up, there is also a an organization which rents out snowmobiles, so it's a company this time, and they are the owner, Jerry Johnson, is plowing the snow in Yellowstone free of charge while the government is shut down, and he is doing it better than they can. He's also emptying trash bins and cleaning the bathrooms on top of that.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's
the the article also lists not during the shutdown, but it mentions that even before the shutdown, Domino's Pizza has been filling in potholes, but I'm sure at this point we already know about that one.
oh yeah, they've been running TV ads about that.
And interestingly enough, the Libertarian Party of District of Columbia has been picking up trash on the side of the highways. I mean, the Libertarian Party itself is a lost cause, but in the District of Columbia, I mean, not to. I'm not putting down what they're doing here. What they're doing here is great, but oh man, they should probably just stop.
Yeah, the Libertarian Party in Washington D.C. You're better off beating your head against a wall. You're not going to make any headway there. I'm sorry, but in terms of what they're doing and what all of these groups are doing, I think it's just absolutely magnificent. And they're doing it for free. It costs the government nothing to have these people just go into areas that would ordinarily be taken care of by federal employees. And make no mistake, the staff for national parks, the rangers, the
Yeah,
gate
you said
guards.
the government, but yeah, these organizations, these companies, these youth chapters, these they're all doing it for free.
Yeah.
And as mentioned in this Yellowstone case specifically, they're doing more than just plowing. I mean, the article didn't give any other examples of that youth organization, but yeah, I mean they're doing a more efficient job, and they're all just volunteering simply because they have a vested interest in doing so.
Well, yeah, I mean it's their towns, their communities. They probably have to walk by there every day on their way to work, on their way to school, or even just because it doesn't look good when they look outside their windows. So why not just take care of it themselves? There's nothing wrong with that, and the longer I think this government shutdown goes on, the more people are going to realize that yeah, dude, you don't need it. You don't need these union assholes to do it. What would happen if if this continues on for several months, and the government does uh, open itself back up again, quote unquote, and suddenly you have lazy bureaucrats doing this all over again, and the service is worse than what these communities have become accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, we have a long history in the U.S. alone of seeing volunteer work come out of a recognized demand that the government won't do it. The government won't do anything, so people just get together and do their own projects and fulfill that demand that's recognized by their communities. I think probably the most famous example is the River to River Road, which I mentioned. I don't remember exactly which video right now, but like a month or two ago, it was, I think, in response. Yeah, a group of 10,000 farmers on June 25th of 1910 built a uh, 320 mile stretch of road in Iowa that goes all the way across the state, and they did this in one whole hour. It took them an hour to build the 300-mile road.
It took 10,000. It took 10,000 farmers, and you can imagine that required a lot of coordination. But you divide that among the 10,000 farmers, each one was responsible for roughly 30 yards of road, and they went from nothing to digging up the ground to flattening it to making sure it connected with everybody else's little 30 yard stretch. That was done in an hour. Meanwhile, it takes the state several months to fix a frickin' road.
Or at best, in New York, it takes 2 days.
Well, it depends on where you are in New York. I've driven through New York City several times, and there are just places that do not freaking get fixed.
Oh, dude, like, what for my high school, it was on a military base, and there was this one stretch of road. It was just one lane forward, the other lane the other way. It took the entire school year to not even get this mile-long road, this tiny road, done. And it was so annoying. It made getting to the school so slow and so tedious just because of that.
Well, you know what happens. You have to go through paperwork, then you have to get approval, then you have to go get clearance, and then you have to make sure that the union is fine with it. I mean, I think what's going on is that...
Yeah, you drop one, you fill in one pothole, then you have to get more paperwork to see if the union and the politicians are fine. If you fill in the next pothole, and then you have to do you have to do the same thing over and over again.
Oh, it gets even... It's the amount of busy work that labor unions require is absolutely absurd. I was actually not shadow banning. I was shadowing a bunch of guys who did HVAC, which is, you know, air conditioning, heating the vents in your house, that sort of thing. And you can't just like do some small amount of electrical work to get a vent. I forget what the thing is. You need to like, install a fan that pumps the condensation from the air conditioning unit that's going to be in someone's attic. There has to be a pump that connects to the outside of the house and just sends it out harmlessly into the yard. Well, that's electronics, which means you can't just like figure out how to do that things yourself. You have to call an electrician who specializes in that kind of thing, which only makes things a lot slower and a lot less efficient. I imagine it's going to be the same thing with a lot of other union jobs, where if you need to dig up pipes, you can't just like learn to remove something and screw it in yourself. You have to call a plumber.
Well.
Meanwhile, people are being bottlenecked in through traffic that's unnecessarily slow. And yeah.
In the words of Limp Bizkit, you want something done right, you just gotta do it yourself.
Pretty much, but given union rules, which are largely just make work rules, that's not allowed.
So many people have said that. Why, of all people, do you have to quote Fred Durst?
I don't know why. I was just like sort of zoning. I was like, I'm really thinking about Limp Bizkit. And I was like, you know what? I remember that one lyric.
But yeah, it's this. The thing is, there's just no incentive for government employees to do anything. If they don't do it, they get their paychecks anyway. If they do it really slowly, they get their paychecks. There's no reason for them to do an exceptional job. And they make no mistake, they don't have any vested interests. They're just there for the money. So if they're just there for the money and it doesn't matter what they do, they're still going to get the money, then, I mean, you can imagine why nothing gets done.
Oh, it gets...
At a very...
And the whole thing about volunteers taking care of quote-unquote public spaces, it's not unusual. People tried to do this thing in the government shutdown of 2014. I distinctly remember this, because I distinctly remember radio talk shows talking about this. There was this guy who arrived on his riding mower, and what he was going to do was mow the I forgot what that thing is, between the Jefferson Memorial and the Washington Monument.
I can't think of it.
The grass. Just call it the grass.
The grass. I think it's like the mall or something. But anyways, what he wanted to do was, it was the federal government during the shutdown, their policy to put barricades and armed guards in front of national monuments, even though they're open spaces, so that people couldn't get in. And they wanted the grassy areas, the parks, to just lie fallow. There was a guy who was going to mow the lawns. He was going to do it for free. I think he was like a veteran or something. He considered it his honor to take care of national public spaces. which, I mean, that's your prerogative, I guess. But he wasn't allowed to do that because the government was shut down.
Yeah, I
I mean,
remember that story.
that's definitely not what's going on now, which is, I think, very good, because it's very clear that at least the Trump administration has a different agenda than the Obama administration in terms of what pain they want to inflict on the public as a result of the shutdown. But the real question is, are the volunteers who are picking up trash now, who are taking care of national parks now, are they going to be in any legal hot water after the shutdown is over? That's actually something I'm genuinely worried about. I mean, I'm not personally involved or anything, but I think it'd be terrible for those people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does anyone else have anything they want to say?
I mean, no, the story is pretty self-explanatory. It's not surprising to anybody who knows anything about history or economic incentives, but yeah, it's not that nothing's getting done. It's in the cases where it's not, the government is actively going out of their way to stop people from doing anything. So they're actually spending resources on stopping people from doing those things. And in the cases that they're not, people who are coming in who, for whatever reason or another, find it to be in their interests to do what the government did, come along and do the job much more efficiently.
Like that one story we did like a couple months ago about the pouring the bleach on the food for the homeless or whatnot.
Without the government, who will ruin the homeless's food?
Yeah, that's the most disgusting part about the government is they literally just if they can't force people out of the market to stop them from competing with them, then they'll destroy everything. It's kind of like it's the mentality that if they can't have it, then nobody can. It's very disgusting.
That's pretty screwed up.
If they can't curb the market, then nobody can enter the market.
Which is, yeah, I mean, like, what do you say to that? There's nothing to be redeemed here. There's no salvageable good to be gotten from it. The only thing, the government's only good at two things: one, fighting other states, and two, killing people. Anything outside of that is just outside of its expertise. You might as well get a plumber to design your logo for your company.
Yeah. Alright.
So anyways, the next part, we were going to talk about how, despite the alleged troop pullout in Syria, apparently the US has escalated its airstrikes. It's escalated its military strikes in the region.
Oh goodness. Why?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was revealed apparently by a private investigation that there were around 50 to 60,000 people stuck in eastern Syria, in the Daesh area, living under the U.S.'s attacks, while they were occupying Syria. But the U.S. has apparently increased the amount of airstrikes which they're conducting in the region. And they're specifically bombing places that sell gasoline and cooking oil, apparently.
Huh. I wonder if they're doing that for military reasons, that can be repurposed for weapons that could be used.
That's why I mentioned it. I find that to be particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Very peculiar. It does require a bit of wondering what's really going on there. I feel like this is really watch the other hand time. I was saying this before the stream started, but I think it's worth mentioning to our audience that you're going to see wall-to-wall coverage on the news, on radio, about Trump's 5-minute address and the Democrats' 5-minute response. So if they were going to be doing some really shady stuff, I think now you should really be paying attention. Keep the freethoughtproject.com on one of your tabs and refresh it every hour,
And
because they're going to try to slip this underneath your attention.
specifically since Trump admitted that they pulled out of Syria, uh, the U.S.-led international coalition in Syria has admitted that 11 civilians have been killed in airstrikes. So within like just a week, that's significantly more than usual. And on top of that, the U.S. military is fudging the figures quite heavily on the amount of people that have been killed in Iraq and Syria since 2014. Because private organizations have private studies conducted in the region have consistently found between 7,300 and 11,600 civilians were killed since 2014 by airstrikes.
Wow.
And the U.S. is claiming that only 1,100 have been killed.
I'm going to assume that the reason that the airstrikes have increased is because the troop pullout has made, at least in their pseudo-strategic minds, the increased airstrikes necessary to make up the difference. Which I don't even know why we're there in the first place. Actually, I do know, but
we can give them the benefit of the doubt, but we're attacking ally-controlled territory in Syria, and we're specifically bombing places where they sell gas. So, everything just with what we know here, it takes more to assume that it's for strategic reasons than it is for economic reasons.
Well, economic reasons are strategic reasons. But it occurs
but when I thought we were talking about military strategy.
Yeah.
No, I suppose you're right in that regard if you're going to use the word strategy literally, but I was using strategy strictly to refer to how military generals are proposing they do things over there in Syria. No, it's very clearly for economic reasons. You can see that pretty obviously from what their targets are and how that's the only thing which consistently connects all of these airstrikes together, and the occupation of these areas is their prevalence in gas and oils.
Which also begs the question, what are they trying to do?
Something stupid, I guess.
Well, they're always trying to do something stupid. It's just the question is, who's going to be more adversely affected? The American people lose in the end, always, but... Are they trying... we already know that they're trying to destabilize Syria and hopefully get a regime that's more friendly to U.S. interests and will allow a pipeline to be moved through. But I'm not entirely sure how the destruction of U.S. ally-controlled, which would be Syrian rebel-controlled, gas stations and gas deposits are conducive to that.
Well, it's not that they're destroying them. They're targeting places where they're selling gasoline.
So it's gas stations.
They're not necessarily destroying the places where it's mined from the earth. It's just they're trying to destabilize their commerce and occupy the region so that all that can happen is the oil gets mined. And by doing this, the U.S. effectively has de facto control over the production of oil and gas in the region.
But you can't occupy a region if your troops are pulling out.
But that's the point. We're still doing this. So they claim that we're pulling out of the region, but we can see very clearly, if anything, our military presence in the area is escalating. So I don't know how you can call that pulling out of Syria.
Well, it looks like the thing that they're waiting on now is whether or not Turkey is going to quote unquote pick up the slack, but the deal that they're waiting on is whether or not they'll pinky promise not to kill the Kurds, who are U.S. allies.
Hey, look at a chat.
Yeah, I see
I
it.
just found a really amazing message right there.
I see it.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was just about to pull up the stream. Oh, nice.
Everybody, I direct your attention to the chat. Look at it right now. Trust me, you won't regret it.
I should have really added more onto that. Here, hold on. I think I'll do something.
Broken.
Fuck.
You broke it.
No.
You broke it. You broke it. Rainbow Asteroids, you broke it too.
Well, don't. Well, I don't think I can continue it. Well, never mind. No. Never mind.
All
But
right.
yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to say about the story.
Yeah.
Not really.
U.S. has lied about pulling out of Syria. Well, they may have pulled the troops out, but they're certainly not stopping their military activities.
Yeah. Oh, and one guy, No Plan Ever, is asking
For
if I have
the
a.
record, for the record, keep in mind we actually called this the moment that Trump announced that troops were leaving Syria. I think it was you specifically. You mentioned that they're probably going to keep bombing them and they're going to keep a military presence in the region, but they're just doing this for political show.
Yeah, pretty much. I noticed that they specified troops, which planes are not troops. Tanks, I don't think, are troops. So they're still going to be doing stuff there for no reason. And also, just real quick, one guy, No Plan Ever, is asking me if I have a Patreon. Yeah, yes, I do. If you want a link, you can check one of my videos. It's always in the description.
I have a Patreon too. It's under all of my videos. I got hit pretty hard after people started leaving Patreon, so...
Yeah,
I
so...
got a Twitch account. That's not a Patreon, but I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, just real quick shillings. But I do thank you for consideration. I would definitely appreciate your donation, which also gets you a link to the Discord page. So check that out too. Anyways, should we move on to the last story?
Yeah, but how long is the stream going on?
The stream's been going on for 42 minutes, and I know that because I have my eyes on it on my phone.
Okay, so we're gonna have to be talking for 18 minutes. Okay.
And not really. We don't have to be.
It would be good though.
It might be. We'll see how long it goes for.
Wait, what?
So the 2019 military budget the Pentagon has requested a 12% increase. So $500 million. Okay, that's the total. Hold on, let me look in here for the specific amount. But yeah, 12% increase of $500 million. So
to military budget.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean,
that was the budget in 2018 spending. It was $7 billion. So 2017 it was $500 million, and they're asking for a 12% increase in 2019.
An even bigger military. Like holy hell.
Last I checked, the military budget was half of U.S. discretionary spending, which is still only like 1/3 of the total U.S. budget, but still, that's a pretty decent slice. But
like,
what's interesting about this is that, like, this is a few months after we had the Pentagon's first ever audit, which proved, like, what we already knew, that there were trillions and trillions of dollars that
1.4 trillion on military spending from 2018 to 2019 is apparently the budget that they're proposing.
What?
Yeah.
So they almost doubled it, basically. No, they did double it. In 2018, the budget alone was, well, no, they didn't, but they didn't double it. But yeah, they're increasing it by 12%. So.
Jeez, that's a lot. Like,
Oh yeah.
why? Like, we're already the world's largest standing military, and what, most advanced as well? Like, why? Like, are they prepared for like world domination, or like, is this going to go to the Space Force? Like,
We're try
well,
that's what we're trying to figure out. I mean, that's one thing that's
Yeah,
people have
that's
been
one way.
speculating for a long time. You have in September 10, 2001, the Pentagon admitted that it lost like 2.4 trillion dollars. Like they just don't know what happened to it. They also
Yeah,
lost another 8 trillion at some other point, and you have the airplane, the
not
F-11, I
even a
think it's
month
called.
ago. Not even a month ago, the Pentagon announced it lost 2.3 trillion, which I mean that's just completely ridiculous. But yeah, on top of that, they're increasing their spending by 12%, and you're also seeing these stories coming out recently that the U.S. is inexplicably starting to deploy troops in the Congo. It's starting really small now, but we were just talking about this before the stream started, where this is generally how it starts. They'll send like 100 troops or so, then those troops will need backup, then the region is unstable, and pretty soon you've got several thousand there, and you're occupying that country.
And if I recall correctly, you mentioned that the reason that the troops are there in the first place, I haven't had a chance to look into it myself, unfortunately, but you mentioned that we're sending 100 troops there
The
to
official
try and.
Yeah, the official explanation is that there is political unrest surrounding a recent election
It's
that is
Africa.
coming up.
There's always unrest. The entirety of the continent is in a continual state of unrest. I think like half of the countries there are in a perpetual civil war.
what, Africa or the Middle East? What? Can you say that one more time?
I said Africa is in a near permanent state of civil war.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's just the
yeah.
biggest. That's the big question right now is why the fuck are we going to the Congo, and why are
Well,
we doing it around one of their elections specifically?
If I
the
were to
Congo
hazard a guess,
elections.
I know that China has been making a lot of moves in Africa in terms of gaining economic and political interests there. And I wonder if this is an attempt to push back against increased Chinese influence, which, if you aren't aware, China is a big US rival, especially in the sense that they're a threat to the US petrodollar. I wonder if this is just some backhanded way of going after China by proxy.
No, it's probably a lot deeper. Everything they do it for a reason, and I think if it was just a way to spite China, I don't think they would have. I don't think they would have done it. There's something a lot deeper here that we're not seeing, but's going to be made self-evident if following the pattern of actions as we observe them.
Hmm. But I'm reminded of something that happened in like 2011, 2012, around then. I don't remember the specific date, when the US sent like 60 troops into, I don't remember where it was, Zimbabwe or Rwanda or somewhere, and nothing really came of that. They kind of just they kind of just went there and then nothing happened. I wonder if this is, it might be one of those things, but for the time being, well, it might be
I mean,
worth it to mark your calendars just in case, because this might be how it starts.
it could be, but the fact that it's happening around a political election in the region is very suspect.
Hmm.
I think
And and in Zimbabwe and Rwanda, Zimbabwe has a high prevalence of Al Shabaab, I think, and same goes with Rwanda. So I think that yeah, in that case, their reason was terrorism. This is very interesting that it's an election this time around.
Well, I guess we got to bring democracy to Africa.
I think the Invisible Hand knows the answer why
That's
the Chinese are in Africa. It's they're looking for the lost city of Xing.
but that's the interesting thing here is it's occurring around an election, and that's the point that I can't stop focusing on because it's really the only point of note, and that's just what it makes me think is that the CIA installed some sort of political organization in the area, and now the military is basically just making sure that that organization overthrows the government there. But that raises another question. Why would the U.S. want to turn the Congo into a puppet state?
I can't think of any reason. I mean, I know that Africa in general just has absurd amounts of natural resources, but I mean,
And that
It's all
yeah, there are. That's the only reason I could think of effectively is the Congo has some sort of natural resource which we're overlooking that is vital to U.S. Interests right now.
I mean, I don't think it's unique to the Congo, however. That's what makes it so interesting. I mean, I think it might be worth it to really dig into this, see who's up for election, see where they stand, see if which one of them is
I mean,
CIA puppet.
I gotta be completely honest. I don't know anything about their politics, so.
I mean,
But to be fair, you probably couldn't tell me anything about most of the political situations of the countries in Africa right now. So.
yeah, likewise. And
I mean, I'm kind of familiar with the political situation in Zimbabwe. Of course, I'm familiar with Somalia. Um, I'm kind of familiar with Sudan, both north and south, and South Africa. Who doesn't know about what's going on in South Africa right now?
oh yeah, it's well basically the entire continent is just in a continual state of absolute garbage. So why
Well,
the U.S. would go there specifically is unclear.
it's because, most of their countries are Stalinist dictatorships, basically, little mini ones. It's like the U.S. if every state was both sovereign, but every state was a different form of dictatorship. That's Africa, essentially. Oh, and the diseases, the wildlife are way fucking worse. So,
Dude, I still remember like not too long ago. I think it was the other year where like there was some ceremony going on in Madagascar, and a lot of people got contracted diseases because they had sex with dead bodies as the ceremony. As a part of the ceremony. I'm not kidding.
the fucking continent's a mess. I'm sorry, but that's fucking funny.
Isn't this also the continent that where that tribe that thinks doctors are vampires comes from?
Yes. Yes.
And on top of that, every single person in the continent is like over here. It's just contained to one state, and that's Florida. But Africa, everyone, every fucking country is Florida.
The Florida dimension, the entire state of Florida is a portal into Africa.
So I heard, how's Nigeria doing? Because isn't that doing like better than the rest of the entire continent? But it's still like, how is it exactly? I've apparently been hearing some good things about it.
Don't know. I don't follow African politics at all.
Yeah, I'm not. That's another country I'm not too familiar with.
Me neither, but I just know it's I guess freer than most of the other economies in the region.
Which
And it happens to be doing better. But
Which
then
is not saying much.
no, not a high mark to reach.
It's not like Zimbabwe though.
Oh no.
At least it's
Or-
not like that.
Or South Africa, which currently has more race-focused laws than at the height of apartheid.
Why are you running? Why are you running? Okay, I'm sorry though. Never mind.
I don't even know what the reference was.
It was that movie Who Killed Cap and Alex.
Oh,
I think that's where it like came out of. Or no, that was Uganda, wasn't it?
He was Uganda. That's where it came out of.
I have no idea. Okay, I'm just gonna shut up. I have
alright.
no idea what I'm talking about.
So back to the Pentagon. So there's a lot of theories out there, like what the Pentagon is actually going to be doing, or what they actually do with the missing money, and also what the Pentagon plans to do with their increased 12% budget. I mean, are they going to try financing the Space Force now?
I mean, that's one theory for sure. But I mean, Is there any reason? I mean, that's probably the biggest question right now that everybody was asking about the Space Force is what exactly is the U.S. going to be needing to spend a couple $1 billion on the Space Force for?
Laser satellites,
The space oil, the
rods
covenant.
from.
I don't know.
Well, the space oil is on one of. Which moon
Titan?
is that?
I
Titan?
think it's Titan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, it's around Jupiter though, so I think is it Jupiter or Neptune?
I'm pretty sure it's Jupiter.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Wait, no. Titan is
Wait, isn't Titan Saturn?
Yeah, Titan's Saturn. Is it Io?
Mhm.
Or am I?
Io is definitely Jupiter.
Yeah, Io's definitely Jupiter, but I don't. I'm not.
I could have swore it was Jupiter,
Well, I want to look it up real quick.
but yeah, lakes filled with methane. The U.S. has been trying to figure out how to get there since they figured that out, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I think this is precisely why we have the Space Force to begin with.
Yeah, apparently
And
it's
Yeah.
Titan.
An entire planetoid covered in oil.
in
If
natural
fucking, yeah, if that was Mars, the U.S. would already be.
gas.
The U.S. would be the largest country by geographic area because you have to count the entire surface area of Titan. You
If
know
Titan, if Titan was a country, the U.S. would be bombing it constantly.
Well, what's going to happen is that the CIA is going to fly buildings into, I don't know, the Empire State Building and then blame it on aliens from Titan as a pretense for war.
That would be the fucking trippiest thing the state's ever done.
They're already trying to find a way.
Go to war with Titan.
Go to war with an uninhabited world.
They want to kill all
Yeah,
those
apparently
basketball
Titan is Saturn.
titans. Kill the basketball titans. I don't know a better term for that.
If there's anyone who's gonna find a way to justify a war with Titan, with an uninhabited planet, it's going to be the U.S. government.
Who was the guy that declared war on the ocean?
Oh, that was what was his name? The Roman emperor, the crazy one, Caligula.
You need someone like him to declare war on Titan. Maybe we could ask him if he was alive.
Yeah, all I think I was going to do is just say that there's aliens on Titan, and they said you look fat.
No, they're aliens on Titan, and they want to take away your freedom.
They
They don't
want,
like your freedom. They're jealous of it.
but what they're
That's
doing.
that's what they would say too. There are aliens on Titan, and they're threatening your freedoms.
When in reality, all they're doing is trying to exchange their oil in space petrocurrencies.
Oh, let's be honest. Any advanced alien civilization is not going to have governments.
Oh no, that's simply not going to be possible. In fact, I was actually thinking about doing a video on that soon, of
Or
what an alien, what the aliens would have to be like in order to reach the U.S. And I was also thinking about doing a video on why the Galactic Empire from Star Wars was doomed to fail for purely economic reasons.
In order to simply get off your fucking planet, you need to not have a government, because otherwise it's going to be in the state's interests to keep you here. So,
I mean,
if
that would be some-
that is, you can even get the startup capital to do that, because the state tries to have a tight control over who can and can't have capital through usury laws. They
Yeah.
cap the interest rates, and in turn, certain people of certain income brackets become a much larger risk.
Well, any civilization that's going to be advanced enough to come to our solar system is going to be so advanced that they don't even need the oil. They're just gonna build a Dyson sphere around the sun and then tell us how to use it.
Their engine is going to be a Dyson sphere.
So
What?
they're basically going to be the forerunners from Halo.
I mean, we can.
They created Dyson spheres.
It is theoretically possible to build one half of a Dyson sphere around a star, and with it, you can move stars.
That sounds really fun. Or
You
no,
just-
what if that? No, I have a theory where that money that the military is trying to get and spend it towards. It's going to spend it towards a giant ass ship in space that's meant to just engulf other planets. It's just a world-eating ship.
Why?
I don't fucking know.
Oh, I can think
They
of
spent
actually.
$1 trillion on a jet that didn't even work properly.
I mean, I can actually think of several reasons why you would want to destroy a planet for raw resources. I mean, for one thing, if you're planning on building like space habitats versus a planet, it's actually way more efficient to use space habitats.
I mean, imagine a ship. That would be a badass ship.
It would be, but you're basically better off just building space habitats and giving them gigantic solar panels, so you have a Dyson swarm out of space habitats. Though we'll probably keep the Earth intact for purely sentimental reasons.
Titan is gassing its citizens.
We have to bring democracy to Titan.
A space Pac-Man.
Pack ship?
It's going to be a Noah's Ark where only the 1% will get to board.
It's not necessarily that they're wealthy that the state prioritizes. I mean, they target certain families too. I mean, there are plenty of wealthy people just around the country who've gained their prominence in the stock markets or just doing local business, and they're pretty much in the exact same position as any so-called working class person. But yeah, there's certainly a politically connected group of people, credit rates, that the state's targeting people who spend a lot in credit and have good credit ratings, that they're trying to ensure those are the only people who can get loans from the banks.
Bacterial microaggressions.
They're laughing microscopically at our inability to get oil from Titan.
If you look really closely, they all have big noses.
Yeah. Swimming in all that oil.
I've actually heard someone say that like Titan's atmosphere is going to be so thick in terms of like gaseous methane and petroleum that you actually could swim in the air. Like unironically.
On Titan?
Yes, just
Yeah.
like you could fly just by flapping your arms like a bird. Like it actually would work.
I would.
That sounds fun.
It sounds like a blast.
Can we just create that type of environment on Earth?
Possibly.
I would like to do that.
I don't know if we. I don't know how. I'm pretty sure that'd be expensive as hell, but I'm sure you could pull it off.
Hey, money. What we're doing, we don't need money. Is the government's motto.
Well, where we're going, we're going to be building Dyson's. Once we are able to escape our solar system, we'll be able to build an exponentially larger number of Dyson swarms. It will be amazing.
Isn't Rainbow Asteroids mentions it's in the bank's interests to loan to people with good credit scores? Yeah, I'm not denying that, but when you have these regulations which are put in place to cap interest rates, it makes it so like there are only certain people that can have credit scores. Essentially, you'd have to be an entrepreneur in the fucking first place to have a high enough credit score to where banks would want to give you any loans.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know, it's just every time I'm talking, I sound super derpy to myself. I mean, apparently you guys don't think so, but yeah, I
Hey,
probably didn't explain that well.
Someone will replace you with a robot, and no one will be able to tell the difference.
if anyone is
Yeah, I'm
like a
sure
derpy,
that's true.
if anyone's derpy, it's gotta be me.
Well, you need a better mic because you're always really quiet.
Part of that has to do with just how I speak. I'm just really quiet.
Well, then get a louder mic.
Can you turn
Kids
it up
go
a
out
mic?
and swim in the oil fields. Yeah.
Like you send your kids to school and they're like, okay, mommy and daddy, and they just start flapping their arms and just flying to school.
Yes, that's actually exactly what happens. Hey, it could be
They-
worse. I mean, NASA has been planning cloud cities on Venus.
Children just sitting on power lines on Titan. Like birds. They'll fly in swarms like birds.
After the U.S. wins its war with Titan and we settle our colonies, humans are just going to be considered to be like birds to the native aliens on Titan.
I mean, that's actually something that Paul Krugman proposed, that we should fake an alien invasion to stimulate the economy.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
And that's also something NASA proposed, you mentioned earlier, building cloud cities on Venus.
I
Wait,
literally
Paul-
just said that.
Wait, Paul
Yeah,
Krugman
but I'm just
suggests-
clarifying for the chat that's not a joke. It's actually something that they suggested.
Paul Krugman suggested that we should fake an alien invasion to stimulate the economy.
Yes.
Yeah, he also said that the Holocaust is what ended the Great Depression.
So,
I-
how many Jews do we need to put in gas chambers to end the Great Recession? I have to ask.
That doesn't even fucking make sense, like, even from a Keynesian perspective, because all you're doing is, I mean, I suppose I could see how he'd reason that, because you'd be spending like crazy, but you're killing a bunch of people. So, I mean, you're not actually creating any investment that'll lead to growth of any certain industries. You're just, a bunch of people are dying. So, I mean, if anything, from the Keynesian perspective, that'll hurt the economy.
Next thing you know, he says we need to bring back slavery to deflate the currency.
He would say that too.
I wouldn't put it past him. But anyways, yeah, it's been over an hour, so you should wrap up the stream. Thank you everybody for stopping by, and hope you have a good night. We'll be back here on Friday at some point between 9 and 10 Eastern Standard. Thank you. Good night.
Wait, how would you gas 6 million aliens?